Well, hello, everyone. Wasn't that fancy schmancy? I'm getting an error message that we are not on Facebook. I'm gonna say hello, and then I'm gonna see if I can't fix the Facebook Live. Welcome, everyone, to Silverline Silver Sunday on this September 14th, 2025, the year of our Lord. I'm your host, I'm Roland. I am joined by... Take it away, Tom.
Tom, it's me, not Roland. I like the new opening because it makes it seem like we're in a movie theater, and that's the thing they put on the screen before they tell you to turn off your phone.
Yes, it is.
So I like it.
Good.
Whoever put that together on the Pops team, congratulations.
They call him Nim.
That's his name, Nim?
Nim.
Does he have secrets?
Tim.
Mike and I are the same nerd.
Yeah.
What'd you say? I'm just trying to get the Facebook Live going.
We did the stereo. Does he have secrets?
Yeah.
We are tuned.
I got it. Oh, here we go. Silverline Comics.
That's what's great about comic book and nerd people is if you don't know anybody and you're meeting people for the first time or whatever, you can always bond with somebody by just quoting movie lines or dropping some kind of geek reference, and then it's like, oh, you're in the tribe. Come on.
That's right. We're also joined by. I just understood. I just got now why you said not rolling. We're joined by Mike W. Belcher, the man in the mask. Guys, say hi, Mike.
Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing? I'm reading your minds.
That's right. Guys, it's pretty exciting tonight. Do you know what tonight is? Tonight's a first. Do y'all know what it is? You want any wild guesses?
No, it's the start of the worst part of the year when the weather turns bad and the sun goes down at like 4 p.m.
Yeah.
So
hurricane season down here in Florida.
Right, I won't feel good till about March.
Yeah.
So, we stream on Facebook, we stream on YouTube, we stream on Twitter, and we are on Rumble, right? We stream to those places live. This episode, first episode ever on
the Roku.
We're on Roku. Awesome. So if you are watching this on Roku, thank you so very much for tuning in to us. We have a blast here. We talk comics, we talk geeky things, we talk nerdy things. As you'll see tonight, we talk to folks who work in the industry. We talk to folks who worked in the industry. Some of them still do. Some of them do not any longer. But we've got a fun guest for you tonight. We'll have lots of fun. And also, guess who agreed to come talk to us in 2 weeks from today? Any wild guesses? One guess for each of you. Tom, what's your guess?
I already know because you texted me right away.
So, okay.
I can't believe I got him. So I have to disqualify myself.
Okay. Mike, any guesses?
Oh, no, I know because I saw the YouTube graphic.
Oh.
It's already on the YouTube graphic.
So okay. All right. Well, so
no
much.
secret here.
You are a terrible secret keeper.
Yeah.
And if this was World War II, you would have been shot as a spy like right away.
Well, it is true. My longtime buddy and friend to all of us, Mr. Stephen Butler, is going to come on, and I think I got a message from Stephen, and I think he's concerned that we'll run out of stuff to talk about because he's like, well, we could talk about this and we could talk about this, and I'm like, dude, no, don't worry about it. We probably won't have enough time to ask you all the questions that we have because I am sure Mr. Mason is going to say, tell us something about Roland and you from your apartment and when you first met.
Also, we don't really need a guest to just keep going. We could talk about stuff. We're supposed to be an hour-long show, and we sometimes run 90 minutes. So
that's right.
We don't have any problem filling time.
That's true. That is true. And also, for those of you on Roku, I know that I don't think it's live on Roku, but I don't know that for sure, y'all. That's something that I gotta.
Have you downloaded the app? Have you downloaded the Roku channel?
I have not.
I did the other day.
Okay.
I tried it out. It's that you could tell that they're getting started, but I was impressed by the content.
Woo! Well, I think again, I don't think we're live. I think it's one of those things because I mean, like if you go to Netflix, right? You go to Netflix
Right.
and you click it, even though it's new, it's not live. So I think that's what's gonna happen for us. So so I'm excited about it. Acres of Movie. What I was gonna tell you folks on Roku is that when we are live, we try to pop your comments up on the screen here and read them out. And when you have questions, as Acres of Movies says, what are your favorite comic book movie adaptations? Thanks from Stacy.
I'm gonna say it's Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band by George Perez. And that's not true at all.
No, not at all. You think about you say that, and then my brain starts going, did George Perez do Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band? Was there some kind of Beatles thing that I didn't admit that? No.
There was an adaptation of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. I'm pretty sure it was Perez, but maybe it wasn't.
What? Really?
Yeah, I think it's done by Marvel. Yeah.
When that stupid movie came out with George Burns and the Bee Gees, and they were all paying homage to the Beatles.
Yeah.
The movie that nobody saw.
Right. I saw it.
Yeah.
See?
When I was a kid and I had HBO, when HBO first started, I probably watched it 100 times.
Right. HBO only had like 4 movies at that time.
Exactly.
So,
It wasn't much to watch. It was Sgt. Pepper and Fraggle Rock. So it was, as far as your choices were.
I saw an Annette O'Toole Beach movie like 17 times.
Right? Yeah.
Because there were only 5 movies on HBO when we first got it, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna watch. I'm so excited about having this thing. I'm gonna watch whatever they're showing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but by comic book adaptation, are we talking about a movie to a comic or the comic to the movie? Which one are we talking about?
I'm gonna assume we're talking comic to movie.
Okay.
Oh, I missed. That's why I shouldn't play this game, because I totally misread that.
You just jumped in too fast.
Now, from movie to comic, I would say the Batman adaptation by Denny O'Neil and Jerry Ordway was probably the best adaptation of a movie I ever saw. Batman '89.
Because it looked great, and it was the first time I think I'd seen Ordway really commit to a Batman story.
Oh yeah, hardcore.
So here's my problem with those is I don't read many of those because of like I saw the movie. Why do I don't want to get? I know that's the only one I can remember is Star Star Wars from when I was a kid.
Right.
And
Archie Goodwin, Howard Chaykin.
Yeah. But if the movie's out, I'm like, I saw the movie. I don't want the comic.
The Batman one, Denny wrote it from the original script, and it makes a lot more sense. There's a lot of things that in the movie you kind of groan about, but in the comic, there's a lot more Batman accuracy in it. There's a lot more. Yeah. Oh yeah, he'd say that. It wasn't as movie-fied, and like I said, it's worth owning just for the Ordway art. The art, I mean, it is absolutely the pinnacle of Ordway at that time. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for coming in. I'm checking here. It looks like most of you are watching us from Twitter. Matter of fact, all but one are watching us from Twitter, and that must be Acres of Movies watching us from YouTube. So thank you. So one other thing, I see him back there, but before we bring him in, one other thing I want to tell you guys about is that we have a crowdfunder running, and I just got this today from Mr. Kablam, and this is our foil cover for. No, this is the wrong one.
That's Kalis.
It is.
You're wrong.
I wonder.
That ain't crowdfunder at all.
I bet. You know what? I bet this is what he gave me. So I bet he might have made a mistake. But look, he also drew something that I can actually show you.
That's right. And it would be Spider-Man too.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're gonna bring in our guest. I see him waiting backstage, so it's exciting. Let's bring him on and introduce him. Hello, Mr. Amash.
Hi, Roland. How are you?
How are you, folks? I am happy to introduce tonight our guest, Mr. Jim Amash. Boy, his where does it go? I had a little thing written up here. Where did it go? I lost it. His credits are so long. Jim's been he's a comics historian. I've lost it, so I got to make it up. He's a comics historian, comics inker. Been doing comics for a long, long time. He works with TwoMorrows. Am I right with that?
Yeah.
Yep. What else, Jim? Couple highlights. What did I forget?
And
he sells crimes.
I think for Archie, I think comics too. I ran a comic book shop for 9 years before I became a comic book artist.
Okay.
I put on what, 7 conventions, I think.
Wow.
It was.
Nice.
And little known fact, Jim played semi-pro baseball.
I did. Had a radio talk show.
Wow.
So,
And,
what-
and,
so
and
maybe there was-
I was known as the world's greatest woman chaser. You know why? They kept running.
you've had all the great nerd jobs:
Yeah.
sports broadcaster, baseball player, comic book artist, store
Now-
owner,
And
convention.
Jim,
Well, I didn't own the store. I was the manager.
Oh, okay.
okay.
Ran a restaurant for 4 years to help pay my way through college. I have a bachelor's and a master's degree in fine arts.
Wow.
Wow. I did not know that.
I shouldn't even be here then.
Jim, we were talking earlier. I'm not asking for your postal address, but where are you geographically?
I'm in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Greensville, North Carolina. Okay, all right. So who did you play? Because let's get this part out of the way. Who did you play?
You wouldn't have
Who did
heard
you play semi-pro ball with?
I played for several teams. We were. Oh, I'm so embarrassed to mention the first team because it's a terrible name. The Lasers. It was named after a company that was supporting us. You know.
Yeah.
Then I was with the Hawks, and then I was with the Bandits. Oh God. We had a manager who was most of the guys, live in North Carolina. They're all Southern fellas, and
Right.
one day we had a meeting. We're going to change the name of the Hawks. Nobody likes it. And I said, you're right. Nobody likes it. So he wants to be the Bandits. I'm like, okay. So he wanted a guy riding a horse, a silhouette.
Like a bandit. Yeah.
Right. And then he said, well, I guess there's enough years have gone by and you guys don't know him. He said that he wanted to put a symbol behind him, and he said, how about a Confederate flag? And we had three black guys on the team.
Yeah.
I said, well, why don't we wear white hoods too?
Oh no.
That stopped the whole idea right there. Because he knew what I meant. Well, half the guys were laughing, and the others were looking at, what did he mean by that?
Yeah, oh no. Oh no.
That was my way of saying no way in hell.
Yeah. No, we're not. Let's not do this. Yeah.
Well, anyway, I was mostly an outfielder, but
Okay.
I played some first base. Like one time I was batting, hit a ball to the third baseman. I figured it's 50-50. I'm going to be safe. He makes a wild throw. The first baseman sticks his arm right out into the running lane. I mean, his leg, I trip over it. I broke his leg. I went in the air, landed, and cracked 3 ribs.
Oh.
Yeah.
Are you safe?
But because we had injuries, besides me, we didn't have anyone to, come in for me. I had to play the whole game.
Oh my goodness.
And it was about 5 degrees, about 90-some% humidity. And I wrapped myself up, and I got 2 hits after that, but boy, was it terrible.
They hurt, huh? I hope Mr. Kirk Spencer's listening to this. He is a bit of a sports fan as well.
Oh, I love baseball. It's the only sport I was ever good at.
Yeah. No, I remember you and I had lots of conversations back in the day. But before we get there, Jim, let's get your origin story. We like to do this when we have someone on here. Let's find out a little bit about where comics and you connect. What's the first comic that you can remember reading as a kid?
I remember the first cover I remember seeing.
Okay.
It was an Aquaman cover. It had, Aquaman fighting some kind of sea animal or something. It had a black cover. That's all I remember of it. but and then I saw a Fantastic Four cover. It was one of the Inhumans covers. The one where they're in front. Behind them is a broken up wall, and there's the Inhumans behind, like on top of that. But my neighbor Billy Fink gave me my first comics when I was 5 years old, and the first comic he gave me some Batman, because the Batman TV show had started in January of '66. And I was ready into superheroes because of George Reeves. He's
Right.
flying through the air, that
Yeah.
beautiful cape.
Yeah.
Little
springboard bouncing up when he got.
But you think about it. You're 5 years old. You see this guy flying through the air. He's bursting through walls. Bullets bounce off him. He gets a hug from Lois Lane, and you got to think that's a good job to have,
Right. Yeah.
And so I was really interested in drawing because of that. And then Adam West is Batman. I'm hooked. We had the only color TV in the neighborhood, so the first night Batman came on, everybody came over. I can't. I mean, you could hardly move in the den, but anyway, I started drawing. Billy saw I was interested, and he saw that I was drawing. I started drawing in kindergarten when I was 4 years old, by the way. But I started getting serious about it because of basically Adam West and the comics that Billy gave me. And he gave me some action comics. I remember Batman, and I remember Spider-Man 32, where he's lifting the stuff off that famous sequence was the first Spider-Man I read.
Wow.
Then, when I saw that Fantastic Four cover I mentioned, that's how I got hooked on Jack Kirby. And,
nice.
And then after that, my favorite company was always Jack Kirby was.
Yeah. Well, now, so what's the comic? What comic was it, if you could remember, that made you think, that's what I want to do right there? I want to go make comic books.
I don't know. I have to think about that. See, I was already drawing comic book characters before I read the comics. That's why it's hard to answer the question.
Yeah. So did you always know that's what you wanted to do?
I think it was George Reeves and Adam West more than the comic books.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. The more I think about that, what the comic books did for me was they made me want to focus more on comics rather than just drawing characters. I used to do all kinds of silly things. I used to get chalk and draw on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And I can remember I was so small. I was tiny for my age. And I used to go behind the couch and draw on the wall in crayon. When I got caught, I'm surprised that I thought they were going to throw me in a trash bin or something, because you're not supposed to do that. You're messing up the walls. I said, well, you can't see it.
All right, yeah, it's behind the couch. Yeah,
right.
Well, you're lucky you had sidewalks.
Yeah,
we had none.
We didn't have a front yard in Pennsylvania. We had those old brownstone kind of houses. The house that I lived in was made in 1882.
Now, is that where you grew up?
Yeah, well, partially. I grew up in Altoona, Pennsylvania. Then we moved to North Carolina, in the late '60s. So both places. But we moved to North Carolina. We had a front yard, but in Pennsylvania, the front yard was the sidewalk.
Yeah.
So I was drawing. We had a stoop, and I was drawing on the stoop. I was drawing just about anywhere I could get away with drawing.
Yeah.
And we didn't have any money. I was one of 7 kids, and we didn't have any money, so I was drawing on bag, that you get when you fill up your grocery bags,
right?
And anything I could get a hold of, and then I started working when I was 9 years old, because if I wanted art supplies, I had to go get it myself. So collecting pop bottles, mowing lawns. Sometimes I'd go walking through parking lots, and you'd be surprised you could find a nickel here, a dime there. When comics are 12 and 15 cents, that's not too bad,
Yeah, that's half a comic.
Yeah, and then when I was in middle school, there was a mobile home place called George's Mobile Homes, after George Washington. A big sign with big cartoon characters of George Washington.
Because he was known for his mobile homes.
Yeah, so I'd go there in the morning. They'd give me the key. I'd unlock the mobile homes. I'd go on to school. After school, I'd go there, and they closed at 5 o'clock. So I would, clean out the mobile homes because people always have the soda bottle or something, and I'd water the plants, and I'd lock the doors, and they'd give me a couple of bucks, and that was a lot of money, 1970, 71. And that was how I was able to buy comic books and art supplies.
Yeah.
So I had to. Even my first pipe, I was like, my friend who started me on it. Unfortunately, I found out today he had passed away earlier today. So,
sorry.
in a way, this is kind of a nice release to not think about it.
Yeah.
But Steve, who started me on it, I had tried my dad's pipe, which he tried and didn't like, and so I tried that. It was a lousy smoker, but it was still my dad's pipe. So I wanted to buy one of my own, and the only way I could do that was to mow lawn. I had to talk to my neighbor. He got $2 for mowing his lawn, $1 for the front, $1 for the back. And I said I needed $1. And he said, why? And I told him I was 13 years old. And he says, well, my dad will kill me if I'm, not supposed to I'm supposed to do this every week. His brother took turns. 1 week Gary did it, 1 week my friend Dale did it. And I said, I'll do the backyard. No one's going to see me. So he said, okay. So he mowed the back. I mowed the backyard. When his dad came home, I said, he gave him the $1. He comes up to my house. I go buy my first pipe. I also bought, you remember when DC Comics did those dollar reproductions of famous first issues?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how I got my copy of the Action One. Same thing. I asked Dale, can I mow the backyard? I need $1 to buy this book. His parents never found out.
Now they know. Yeah,
they're gone. They're past.
Oh, okay, yeah. So it's all safe.
Your secret is safe. You can spill.
Yeah. That's a cool story. So this was happening. So your love for comics kind of really developed once you got into North Carolina. Then.
No, I'd say Altoona because that's what we did when Batman came on TV.
So you mentioned earlier that you had both a master's and a bachelor's in fine arts.
Right.
So when you went to college, did you study comic book art at all? I mean, fine arts.
I did fine arts. There were no classes for comic books.
No.
Did
they know you wanted to make comics?
Oh yes, they did.
Oh yeah. So what kind of reaction?
I had a bit of resistance.
Yeah.
Do
tell.
Some of these people were snobs.
Yeah.
No.
And the head of the art department, it was disliked by a lot of people. She was elitist. She was snobbish. She didn't like men. And she didn't like me because I was talking to her, I was friendly, and somehow that was a bad thing. I never understood that. But when I decided to go to graduate school, and I was sick, you had to have a presentation, and the faculty had to in front of the faculty to see whether or not you were going to be accepted. And I happened to be sick that day. I had a fever like 100, 102. And I had my work up, and generally everything was positive. And my professor, Walter Barker, God rest his soul, he was a lot like Jimmy Stewart. He was tall. He had that kind of, slow, casual way, dressed very plain on purpose. And I learned from that. I dressed plain because I learned that from him. Don't let your personality speak for you. And, because I have an outsized one anyway. So I don't need to wear stuff that really show off. I got a big mouth enough. That shows enough. So anyway, she comes in and she starts saying, all you want to do is draw comics. You're not serious about all this, blah, blah. And she was trying to disrupt the whole thing. She just came in the middle of this. And generally, I'm easy to get along with. I've made very few enemies in my life. In fact, all the years in comics, I've only frankly made one enemy. That's not bad in over 30 years.
Yeah.
Guy.
Not many people can say
Was it
that.
me?
No. Although Roland told me to hate you, but he didn't pay me any money to do it.
Roland tells that to a lot of people, so I'm used to it.
So anyway, I was not in the mood to hear this. Like I said, I was sick with I was sick and I was sweating because I had a temperature, and I turned around to her. I said, "Let me tell you something. I pay your salary." I said, "You wouldn't have a job if it weren't for people like me who wanted to get into this program." And I said, and I said, "I have every right to be in this program if I'm accepted, and there isn't one damn thing you can do about it." And yeah, I know that sounds kind of. I'm just not like that normally, but I just wasn't going to listen to it. I said, "I work hard to make my money because I paid my way through school. I didn't get a single penny from my parents, from anybody." And I said, "I work a full-time job to do this." And I said, and I am good enough, and I am better than some of the people that went into this program. And I said, and if you don't like it, that's too bad, because there's not a damn thing you can do about it. And the whole faculty knew me, and all of them, their mouths had dropped. They never even heard me say the word damn before. So Mr. Barker got up and gave this speech about why I should be admitted into the program and what an asset I would be, and that I'm a unique artist, unique sensibility. She turns around and she says, "We'll see about that," and stalked off. And I said, "Yeah, we'll see about that." So so she left. Everybody was so ticked at her. It was a unanimous vote that put me into grad school.
What I've found is for the generation where they did not teach any sort of comic book art in college or universities, that there was always one guy or woman who was the comic book person.
Yeah.
Like there was a comic book person in my college. I've talked to other artists who were the comic book person in their college, and they were just known as, not the fine artist or not the commercial artist, whatever. They were the comic book guy.
Yeah.
You remind me of something that in my little speech to her, I said, "Look, what I want to do is to learn how to draw and learn how to paint." And I said, "Are you going to tell me?" And I turned around and went like this, point to everybody all the way across. "Are you going to tell me that there's not a single person on this faculty that can't teach me how to draw or how to paint?" I said, "Because if they can't, you need to tell me now, and I'll go somewhere else." I forgot that I said that. And, all of a sudden, that turned everybody against her.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to do that to turn everyone against her. I was just speaking my mind. There was no hidden motive in saying it, but it just happened to be the right thing to say, and there wasn't a word she could say back.
Yeah.
It's so funny that many years later, I went to an art exhibit. This was back in '98. I graduated. I got my degree my master's in '86. And she comes up to me and she goes, "Jim," like I'm her best friend.
Yeah.
And she's, "I'm so happy to see you." And I said, "Hello, Miss Gregory," because she never married. And she hugs me. And I'm going, "Wow, this is weird." And she says, "Yeah, I'm so proud you made in the comics." I don't know how she heard about it, but however she heard about it, maybe she'd seen me in the newspaper, because I'd been in there a couple of times, or maybe someone told her. But however she found out, she acted like I was her protege. And all this. "We had a hard time getting you through," and I just so badly wanted to say, "Yeah," because and it was because of you. But I kept my mouth shut. You didn't proud of me. I was very diplomatic. But I just remembered that too. Just some people have their prejudices. I'm just not like that. To me, drawing is drawing.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, you think about Michelangelo drawing on the Sistine Chapel. That's comic books in a certain sense. It's
And
narrative.
he did it for money.
Yeah,
he didn't do it out of any highfalutin sense of art. It was commerce.
Right.
That's right. Yep.
Right.
Pay me.
But if you look at it, it's graphic narrative, which is what comics is, graphic narrative.
Yes.
And hell, Michelangelo was exaggerating some of those figures. I mean, some of those muscles on the Sistine Chapel don't exist in real life. But if he drew them realistically, he wouldn't have given them the impact that the image he needed, that he wanted.
Right.
And comic books are the same way. So I figure on basis like that, I don't see as much a divide between fine art in comic books or illustration as a lot of people do. That's just the way that I look at it.
Yeah. So you got your master's in '86. So what was your first? What was the first published work then? How did you get? What was the book that made your break? What was that?
Well, my friend Tom Hitchens, who I met when I was running the restaurant, I was at the counter board, we ring people up, and I'm just doodling,
Right.
He was a customer, and he says, "You like comic books?" He saw his doodle. I said, "Yeah," and it turned out he liked comic books, and I joined a comic book club. And Tom and I became friends, and we're still good friends. And he was an editor of the Comics Journal for a while, and he does Hogan's Alley today.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and every time I see him or he sees me, we put our heads up and go, my boy, like Gil Kane used to do. Because Gil Kane, you have to know shots, right? And Gil, even if he knew your name, it didn't matter. He goes, my boy, my boy. So Tom and I still make fun of Gil, who we both were friends with. And so Tom, for a while, I can't remember if he was an assistant editor of Amazing Heroes, I think it was. I don't think he was the editor. He may have been an assistant.
He was a news editor of the Comics Journal.
Yes, but he had done some Amazing Heroes too.
Not that much, because the Amazing Heroes at that time was Dave Olbrich and myself and Kim Thompson.
Okay. Anyway, Amazing Heroes is where my first cartoons were published.
Oh, really?
Yes, excellent. And Tom asked me if I wanted to do any cartoons for Amazing Heroes. So that's why I was, my memory is not fuzzy on that, but it's fuzzy on what Tom was doing.
No,
for
Tom
Amazing
Heinz
Heroes.
is not me. Tom.
Okay, right.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess Tom had to be involved in Amazing Heroes somehow, or I wouldn't have been asked. He just said, "Hey, if you got any ideas for cartoons, we could use a few." And so I did too.
And the answer is always yes.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But
and then do it.
Jim, let me interrupt you real quick. We're joined here at last. Did y'all wait for me, Mr. Thomas Flormonti Jr.? Tommy, say hi to everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Also, Tommy, say
hi.
hi to Roku.
What?
Say hi to
Are we
Roku.
on Roku?
We're on the
radio.
radio.
Yeah,
no, Pop said it'd be an hour after it aired.
Yeah. We're not live, but we will be on Roku. So
I'm gonna check.
Not live.
It might be. You never know. I'll let you know in a half a second.
So, so your first published art then was in Amazing Heroes.
Yes, as far as cartoons, I had a couple of illustrations published, like in school papers, things like that. But that
comic
booky
booky stuff.
Yeah, but that was more illustration. I had a couple of cartoons published in my whole school newspaper because I was one of the head writers. See, I knew I wanted to be a writer too. I never got to write comic books, and so
the pay is not very good.
No, it's not. Those were my first cartoons that were published professionally.
Yeah.
I don't remember if I got paid for them or not. I don't think I did, but I don't remember.
Yeah.
If it wasn't much. But I remember one of the cartoons in particular was about when Marvel and Jack Kirby were fighting over the artwork, and I was friends with Jack by then. So I did a cartoon of a few Marvel characters in Kirby's style, and I can't remember the word balloon. But it was something like, and they're holding up a comic that says Marvel on it. And I said, "Look at what they're doing to our hero," or something like that. And Tom loved it, of course, because Kirby was treated very nasty.
Yeah,
and Jack was my hero. He still is. God rest his soul.
Yeah,
he was a great person. He was a great person and a great artist. I mean, without him, Steranko, the truest thing that Steranko ever said was in the history of comics when he said, "Without Jack Kirby, there'd be no history of comics to write about."
Yeah. Kirby's a hero to a lot of us.
Yeah, and I was friends with him, and I was one of the few non-family members who was a house guest, and I could tell Jack Kirby stories all day because I loved him dearly. My father died.
This episode's about you, not Jack. So
yeah, well, I'll say this because it's about both of us. When my father died, and I called it, I told Roz. The day of the funeral, sort of in the days because my dad died, and I see this big floral arrangement. I'm 6 foot tall. The thing is as tall as I am, and it was from Jack and Roz. And I still got the card, you know. And somewhere I took a picture of the thing, but that's the way
Yeah.
that's the way the Kirby's were. They were that kind of people. But they when I got a job, when I was offered a job at Marvel, and Jack was still fighting, you know, Marvel about getting his original art back. He'd gotten some back. He got 88 pages. And then finally they gave him more, and I called him up and I said, Marvel wants me to work for him, Jack. I said, what do you want me to do? I said, if this is gonna bother you or change our friendship because you're battle with him, I won't work for him. And Jack said, Jim, if you boycott Marvel because of me, all you'll do is hurt your career and you won't do anything for me. He said, take the job. But you know, that's, you know, I feel like that's about Jack and me, but that's the kind of person he was. It's hard for me to ever talk comics without talking about him. So
Yeah.
but that was an important thing. He was thinking of me, you know.
Yeah. So what was your first comic book work?
It was a small company, Millennium Comics.
Millennium, okay.
Millennium. It was comic was It, The Terror from Outer Space, which was based on a movie.
Yeah, I remember the movie It.
It was a lousy comic, and I did a lousy job because the penciler. I remember the penciler. I won't say his name. He was like me. He wasn't ready for prime time.
Right.
Neither of us were, but I was learning.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And I had one up on learning. I went into inking because I felt like it was the fastest way to get into comics, and I needed a job. But I had one up on that when I was in graduate school. I was doing etchings and engravings, not realizing how I was developing a knack for doing clean lines, because when you're etching on a plate, you can't make a mistake. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I was developing an inking style without even realizing that I was. But so you know, precision came. You know, I had that, did woodcuts too. And that really helped me to develop, even though I didn't know I was doing it for the reason that was to come.
Yeah.
But
now,
anyway,
what year would this have been?
I'm sorry?
What year would this have been?
92.
92. Okay.
92.
All right.
My wife, who's younger than me, she had graduated from college, and she came home one day and she said, I got a job at Nations Bank. I start next week. And that Monday I went and quit the comic shop because that's not what I wanted to do with my life.
Right.
And so I'm out of a job.
You make the money, honey.
Yeah. So I picked up all my stuff from the comic shop. I come home. I'm trying to open the front door with an armful of stuff, and I heard the telephone ring, and I got inside. I put down the stuff, answered the phone. It was Millennium Comics with the job, and that's how long I was out of work.
Wow. Wow.
You know, I had been trying for about 7 months. It took 7 months to break in, you know, to get with them. I did some work for another company. Benintendi, I think, was the guy. No, not Benintendi. Dennis Mallowy. Was it Hero Comics that he had?
Heroic Publishing.
Yeah,
Heroic.
Hero Publishing.
Heroic.
Yeah, I did a couple things for him. And finally, there was a comic convention in New York in 92. And I went. And, you know, I had already made friends with John Romita because I was trying to get him for one of my comic book conventions. And if I had not left the comic book shop, he would have been my guest that year. Him and, you know, and John Buscema had interest. I would have had a hell of a lineup, you know. So John was predisposed to give me advice. And so I came by his office and I said, hi, John. And he says, hi, Jim. And I said, he said, what you doing in New York? 'Cause I'm here for the show, and I'm here to show a portfolio. I said, do you have a few minutes to look? And he says, no, I'm really busy. I've got 40 minutes to finish this cover rough. And I said, okay, well, how about if I leave it to you and I'll give you a call when you know. And he says, okay. So I turn around to leave, and he says, wait a minute. You live in North Carolina, don't you? I said, yeah. And he said, he took his hand, and he pushed the drawing off the board, and he says, I can give you 20 minutes. So he looks through my portfolio and he says, Jim, it's professional. It's as good as some other people here, you know, not meaning great, you know, but certainly he said professional level. He had about 3 criticisms. And, you know, every time I do a page, I had to think about it, you know, like I was making the action lines too thick and little things like that. And he said that's the only problem. He said, so one day, 93, he's in the elevator with an editor who I had tried to get work from, and who was like kind of dismissive of me. And he says, I need an inker. And so John says, have you ever, do you know who Jim Amash is? Yeah, he had called me, and he said, you ought to use him. He's good, and he just needs a break. And that afternoon, I got a call from him, and that's how I got started at Marvel.
Wow.
So when I was doing books, the John Romita book was going to be a couple issues of Alter Ego, being associated at the time. I was the head interviewer, but the interview was so long, it would have had to be 3 issues. And Thomas and I agreed that you can't do 3 issues devoted to one person.
Right.
So then I said, well, what do we do? And Roy says, well, what do you think about putting it together as a book? And I said, I think it's a great idea. And he says, I'll call John Morrow. I'll call you back. So 5 minutes later, phone rings. We've got a book deal. So the first book I did was to John Romita, and considering what he did for me, how could I done better?
Yeah. So what's the title of this book?
It was Roy named it was John Romita and All That Jazz, since he was Jazzy John Romita.
Yeah, Jazzy John. Yeah.
I got a book coming out. I think sometime early next year. Eric Nolen-Weathington, who does the books for me, he usually does the layouts, but this time he did a lot of writing. I did a lot of rewriting because I was the editor. He edited, but I was doing more editing than him. And it's going to be about Jim Aparo.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
I was friends with Jim. He was a great human being. He was funny. Of course, he was a great artist. It's a funny thing about Jim. We had the same initials, Jim Amash, Jim Aparo. And I used to do my initials the same way he did. And then one day when I discovered him in comic books, I saw that and went, oh, I had to change the way I did initials.
Yeah.
I thought, as great as Neil Adams and Irv Novik's Batmans were in the 70s, and I loved the Frank Robbins probably even more, those few issues that he did with Batman and Man-Bat,
Yeah.
Jim, to me, was the greatest of the Batman artists of that time period.
Yes, he was.
Yes, he was.
And he did, it was so funny because I always figured I was destined to be a pipe smoker, and Jim would draw people with pipes. And I remember there was Batman and the Atom, and Ray Palmer's coming into some building, he's smoking a pipe, and Ray Palmer didn't smoke a pipe anywhere else. Yeah, but Jim would, do things like that. And he drew ties that nobody else drew them. And I used to go looking for that kind of tie, never could find them. And many years later, when Jim and I became friends, I asked him about those ties, and I said, "Where did you get those ties?" He goes, "Oh, I made them up." I said, "Well, no wonder why I couldn't find them."
Yeah.
He was a dear man, and this book was going to be done by some other people, and it got delayed for all kinds of reasons. And finally, Eric asked me if I wanted to, join in and get that book done after all these years. So that's, it's a giant delay, but it'll finally be out sometime. In fact, I finished proofreading the checklist. Today's Sunday, on Friday.
Oh, nice.
So all the text is done. The only thing left is the text for the gallery of some of the artwork.
Right.
Yeah.
So I still have to, I'll still have to edit that when I get that, but everything else is finally done. I just hate that it took so long. But it's going to be pretty good, I think. I wish we couldn't use so many DC Comics images for legal reasons.
Yeah.
So there's gonna be a lot more Charlton maybe than usual, but his Charlton work was pretty good,
He did the cowboy strip Wander with Denny O'Neil. And he defeated a great Phantom.
Oh yeah, he loved doing the Phantom, and he did a little humorous stuff, and Jim did some ghostly tales and all, and he was really he was more adaptable, I think, than he got credit for. Like a lot of artists.
Yeah.
you know, are more adaptable. They just don't necessarily ever get a chance to show you that they are.
They're too busy making money, making a paycheck.
Well,
Right.
I'm glad he adapted to Batman.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
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 When I think of Batman, even to this day, I think of Jim's work. You know, just like in the Bob Kane style, I think of Dick Sprang, who I was also friends with. I love Dick Sprang's art. You know, very graphic imagery, and you know, and he knew how to spot blacks. He knew how to do textures, and even though it was really cartoony, you believed that stuff was happening. You know, same with Harvey Kurtzman. You know, to me, Harvey was such a great cartoonist, but he was so good at it, he made the unbelievable believable. You know, you know, a lot of artists say, "Oh, you know, Neil Adams drew realistic." I think to me, it depends what your idea of realism is. My idea of realism is if the artist and the writer convince you of this story and what's happening, if you're into it, that's realism. You know, it doesn't matter what kind of style it is, whether it's the most photographic possible or whether it's the most cartoony possible. If you buy it, it's realistic to you. That's just my point of view.
Yeah. So we have a question here. It says, "What?"
Hold on one moment. I got a cat
Okay.
that wants to go outside. Come on, Tomato. Come on, buddy.
Tomato.
I didn't name him. I did not name him.
Does he have another cat named Lettuce?
I'll give you a close look at him. Come
Yeah.
on, Tomato. He was the neighbor's cat, and frankly, they treated him badly, and he came our way, and you know, he loves us. He ain't got any brains, but he's a sweet boy.
I don't know, David A. Scooterez. I kind of like Disc Sprang. David A. Scooterez says, "What did Dick Sprang think about working with Kane?"
He never worked with Bob Kane. In fact, he didn't. You know, Dick moved out to Arizona before World War II, and he did everything by mail. You know, it's an interesting way to work back then. He would pencil. He would pencil. And usually he inked for at the beginning, and then Charlie Paris, who was a great inker, also was born in Greensboro, and had him as a guest. Dick and Charlie as a guest at one of my conventions in '89, along with Harvey Kurtzman, as a matter of fact. But Dick would actually, before he mailed the pages in, trace the pages in case something got lost or he needed a reference or something like that. So he did that extra work and didn't get paid. But Dick would resent when Bob Kane said that Dick Sprang was one of my better ghosts, because Dick did not work for Bob Kane. It was independent. In fact, I think he only met Bob Kane once. That I can recall Dick saying. So no, Dick didn't like him.
Really?
Charlie Paris didn't like him either, because Kane was arrogant. Kane took credit for everybody's work. I was in San Diego one year, and some guy, and Bob Kane was there, and some guy had had a detective cover that was I can't remember. I guess it was Carmine inked by Murphy Anderson, and Bob Kane, was looking at it and said, "Yeah, this is one of my better jobs." like he thought people would think it was him. So it was that kind of that kind of thing, that Dick didn't and Charlie didn't like about him. Yeah. But
there's more than one of those kind of people in the industry, isn't there?
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah, but anyway, I thought Dick was a great cartoonist. Before that, he had done some work for the WPA. He had done some pulp illustrations. Dick was a master cartoonist, and in the first around 2007, later, I did an introduction. I did several introductions for DC Archive hardcovers. Jerry Bales. They wanted Jerry Bales to do it, and Jerry says, it's time to go to another generation. He recommended me, and that's how I got to write. I think I wrote 7 or 8 of them, and nice. I got to write one where Dick Sprang had artwork in it, so I got to write about Dick Sprang, and I was very very happy to do that, because Dick was a great man. He was a cowboy, by the way. He had a ranch, And when he left comics in '62, he just devoted himself to ranching and being a cowboy. Even when he was 80, he was still rock climbing. Yeah, he was a hell of a guy, but he was a great artist. And I thought in the style that was supposed to be the Bob Kane style, Jerry Robinson was great, but I thought Dick Spring was even better. And that's no insult to Jerry Robinson, who I'm a fan of, and I was a friend with him too.
Yeah.
I hope I answered the question.
I forgot what the question was now.
Working with Kane.
Oh, yeah, what
I
did
did
the
answer
spring
the
thing? Yeah. So we have another question here from Acres of Movies. It said, "Who would you cast as yourself in a movie?"
Oh my gosh. Living or dead?
Hey, either way.
Yeah.
Oh, either way, I'll say Humphrey Bogart.
There you go.
No, actually, it'd probably be Edward G. Robinson, because I smoke. One of the blends I smoke is Edward G. Robinson's pipe blend.
Oh boy.
which I had a hand in saving it from cancellation. Because I know this is
Because you smoke so much?
Well, I'm probably, this sounds really vain. I hate to say it like this, but I'm probably the most famous pipe smoker in the world. I've written over 3,300 reviews of different blends of pipe tobaccos I have smoked.
I'm betting there's a fella by the name of Sherlock who probably more people know.
Yeah, but he's not current. Well, he might be smoking where he landed when he died. but seriously, Settler Tobacco Company was going to discontinue the blend. I said, you can't do that. I just discovered, because I'd heard about it, never tried it. So I wrote them a letter. I said, the only way I can get a sample is because they only sold it in tubs for like $45. That's, if you don't like it, you're screwed,
Yeah.
So they sent me a whole tub, which was very generous. And the guy wrote a note, happy smoking.
Happy smoking.
Yeah, I called him up to thank him, and he said, "Well, enjoy it because we're discontinuing." And I said, "You can't do that. I just discovered it." So I did an internet campaign on all the pipe forums, and I had people call them. I had people email them, and I did this till 4 a.m. Pumping this up on a Sunday night, Monday morning. And 11 o'clock that morning, I got a call from the head of Sutliff, and my wife says, "Hey, Jonathan's on the phone. I pick up the phone and say hello, and he doesn't say hello back. He says, "We surrender." They just had a board meeting. They said, "We're going to keep, producing it," because they had so many requests that their server crashed for 3 days.
Wow.
And then they had 3 companies, retailers, pick it up, and one of them was in California. He said, "Jim, they ordered a case of Edward G. Robinson." He said, "Do you know what that means?" And I said, "No, there's 12 tubs in the case. That's an awful lot of money." And the retailers in California. California has the highest tobacco taxes in the country. So if they did that, we got to keep it going. So anyway, I'd say Edward G. Robinson for me, because he wore a beard later in life, and I've been stuck with this one for a long time.
Well, Woody M, thanks for hanging out with us, Woody. Woody says it does look like Bilbo's pipe.
I've got a big pipe collection. You can see some of them behind me.
Yeah.
I
didn't realize that's what that was, but yeah.
It's a pipe rack. You see this model right here?
Mm-hmm.
It's a Peterson. It's called a 4AB. This is the model that Basil Rathbone smoked in the old Sherlock Holmes Universal movie.
I was going to say that looked like a Crime Solvers.
Yeah, it does.
Well, they had quit making it after the 40s, and it took me 3 years to convince Peterson and Ladossi, who owns Peterson, to get that into production again. But it was the one-shot pipe of the year. I had wanted a 4AB ever since I started smoking a pipe, but there was no way to get one. So it only took me 47 years, but I finally got one. And they made them in 7 finishes, and I had to have the whole set. Couldn't afford it, and a bunch of my friends chipped in and bought most of them for me, and they came to me on my birthday.
Oh, that's very cool. Happy birthday.
But the only birthday present I ever had that matched up to that is a friend of mine got Arlo Guthrie to make a video to sing me happy birthday and Merry Christmas because my birthday's at the end of November.
Wow.
Nice.
So
Nice.
anyway,
So Jim, a lot of the folks who tune into us are old Malibu. I shouldn't say old. They're
Yeah.
Malibu because we got some young ones, but they're Malibu fans, right? They there's a lot of nostalgia for the Ultraverse and for Malibu Comics, and so a lot of the folks who kind of hang out with us, you know, have very kind thoughts about Malibu. Now,
me too.
Yeah, well, most of us here do. Yeah. So my memory of you begins at Malibu. Can you tell us? Can you tell us and all the folks listening?
How I got in?
Yeah, how you got to Malibu?
You. I sent you a portfolio. We talked on the phone, and you basically said, you know, if something comes up, let you know. And you know, I didn't know you before that. We didn't know each other before that.
Nope.
But you know, but I think you liked what I'd sent, and then
I learned that trick from Mr. Mason. You always say I don't have anything right now.
Yeah.
Right.
If you want to keep someone sort of in your back pocket, because the thing is, when you make comics, something always goes wrong, and you always need someone.
Well, that's what happened. I got a call from Roland, and he said there was a book that was late. Was penciled by Bill Black and his partner. I can't think of his partner's name. Gosh, it'll come to me. And it was Mark Heike. Thank you. Well, I was familiar with their work because I ran the comic shop. I was selling AC Comics, you know, and it was 6 pages, and you needed it over the weekend. And I said, yeah, I can do that. And I did that. You were happy about it. It was gosh, I can't remember the character. I can remember the character. Steve Englehart wrote the story. I remember that because I went, wow, I get to ink something Steve Englehart wrote because I always liked his writing.
Right.
The Strangers or Nightman.
Yeah, Strangers or Nightman. Yeah.
Yes. It was Nightman. So, and then you gave me work on Mantra. And then I became the regular inker on that because of you.
Yeah.
So
do you remember your penciler on that one? I do.
The first one was oh gosh, I can remember. He was learning too, and he only did one story. I only inked one of his. God, I can't remember his name. If you tell it to me, I'll remember it.
Well, I'm thinking of Dave Roberts.
Before that, I had inked several issues before him.
Rob Phipps, maybe.
I inked the Rob Phipps issue.
Yeah,
and he was a good penciler, really good penciler. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
But it was before him. I want to say Dodson. Was it Terry Dodson?
No. Well, it could have been Terry Dodson.
I was going to say he did Mantra for a while.
Yeah. It might have been Terry Dodson. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember because when the characters were flying at night, there was a little mountain range, and he writes inker. He says, "Please put in lights in there, you know, that I can't draw." You know, and I went,
"That's
really?
What you want to see as an inker." Take it up, just make it up, whatever you want.
Well, there was one person once who drew a box and it says "Draw a car."
Draw a car.
Well, Bob Kane did the same thing. According to Charlie Paris, who Bob Kane actually penciled the early Batman newspaper strips, and Charlie inked them, and he said Bob would like draw 3 lines like that and write door. So so Charlie had to draw the door. So
draw Batman and Gotham behind here.
I can do that kind of art. Just draw a stick figure and say Spider-Man.
but yeah, it was Dodson. I think only did the issue because he left. I think he went to Marvel or DC. I don't remember.
Yeah,
where.
he got a good gig.
Yeah. And then it was Rob Phipps who did a wonderful job. Henry Martinez did an issue, who did a wonderful job, and I by then I thought that was one of the best issues I did because I was really doing well with a brush by that time. I had to I had a good hand for a steady hand because of the etching engraving I told you about, but I also had the ability to use a brush because I was painting.
Yeah.
When I was in graduate school.
Well, and I know what I mostly remember was you and Dave Roberts.
Yeah,
you guys made I always thought you guys made a good team, good pairing.
Yeah, and he was a nice guy. He lived in England. I talked to him on the phone a few times. He loved what I was doing. He didn't mind that I embellished it some. You mean to tell him the story about getting that job?
Sure.
Days? Okay, so I had inked a few issues.
If you have to, you can. The names can.
I don't know. I never did know who was the one that told you not to hire me to get somebody more experienced because I didn't think I could do it or something like that.
Okay.
But you didn't tell me that at first. This is what happened. I just got a page in the mail. It was a splash page for the first issue that Dave Roberts drew. And I looked at it and I said, oh, my God, this is wonderful. And I could see George Perez in there and all. And I knew George Perez's style enough to know what to do. But then I said, I can add my own style because of the other issues I did. I was mostly just trying to complement the penciler rather than try to bury him. I never liked burying somebody's artwork.
Right.
The only time I was told to do that a few times, like my Steve Ditko at Marvel, I didn't like burying the great Steve Ditko, who I grew up idolizing and became friends with. He was a very interesting man, always friendly to me. But anyway, so I looked at it and I said, I know exactly what to do. So I inked it more in my style than I had anything else I had done for anybody in comic books. And I did almost an old engraved look to it with the lines. And I said, because I wanted to impress you. And I wanted that job. So I sent it back. You get it, maybe a day or two later, FedEx.
FedEx, yeah.
Yeah. And so I get a phone call and I say, hello, Roland. Is this kick-ass Amish? And I started laughing. I said, yes. I said, and you told me that he says the best thing you ever did. And you said that somebody yanked it out of your hands and passed it all the way around the office, looking at it. And I'm going, wow, nobody ever reacted that way to my work in comic books before. And so that was how whoever it was that told you to use somebody else changed their mind. And that's how I ended up staying on Mantra.
Yeah.
Which, like I said, I was happy to do.
Yeah.
I like Mike Barr's writing. I like Mike Barr personally.
Yeah.
And he was also, like me, an Ellerby Queen fan. And,
right.
because I like detectives and stuff. And it was a very, I have to say, Roland, you were one of my favorite people to work with.
Oh.
We had nothing but a great time, and you know what really I appreciated more than anything else about you?
What's that?
You, no matter what artist you gave me, you trusted me.
Yeah.
You knew that I would adapt to whatever the style demanded, and you trusted me.
Well, I look back on that still today, and we made some pretty good comics. I think all of Malibu. I look back on those now. Some pretty good comics there. They stand the test of time, I think.
I never got to ink Thomas as far as I can remember, but I always admired your work. By the way, I always thought you were very good.
Me?
Yeah.
No, I didn't
you.
pencil anything.
I saw you. I saw your work. But I saw you work, and I said that's good artwork. Okay, so you were the inker, but you still did great artwork.
I appreciate that.
Okay, so I was confused about thinking you were a penciler, but I remember seeing your work and going, that is really nice work.
Yeah.
So I did a big run on the Nightman books too.
Yeah.
Woody says, I am loving the story. So there you go. Told you, Jim, we'd have a blast here. So now, so after the whole Malibu thing fell apart, guys, if y'all have a pressing question, jump in here.
I don't know. I'm just listening.
After the whole, Malibu thing fell apart, what did you do then? Where did you go? Where did you find yourself after?
Well, I was still working at Marvel, and I remember in one Marvel editor I was working for was really unhappy about them acquiring Malibu. He didn't realize I was working for Malibu, and he started to say, "We don't need them. but we don't need their characters, blah, 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 and going on and on. I didn't say anything, but God, I wanted to. Because, everybody at Malibu treated me very well.
Yeah.
The only complaint I have about Malibu is that it ended. Really.
Yeah.
Really. I enjoyed everything I did. I enjoy, and your assistant editor, Gerald D.
Victoria, yeah.
Great guy.
Absolutely.
Knowledgeable. Of course, I helped myself in the fact that I was never, even this day, I have never missed a deadline. I'm proud of that.
Sweet. Yeah, you should be proud of that.
And
not too many people who can say that.
Right. I can't say that.
And I've got 33 years of doing it, and I've never been late. And that was another reason I think I got work from you and some other editors. They knew that if you needed. In fact, you don't remember this, but I remember I was doing issue Mantra, and I had gotten food poisoning, and boy, I had it bad. And I called you up and I told you that. I said I might be a day late, because I am really sick and all that, but I worked through it and I still got it in on time. And I remember you calling me up and telling me how much you appreciated working through food poisoning.
Well, the thing, and I think Tom can attest to this, being on time was very important to me. It was important to the company because we lost money, or let me say this, potentially we could lose money if we didn't ship our books on time.
That's right.
Also, and I will say this, and Roland, you can stop me if I get too personal, but Malibu had had series of editorial meetings every week, and there'd be a schedule, and it'd be editors whose books were on time, editors whose books were sort of falling behind schedule, editors whose books were late, and I remember Roland saying, with pride, running around the office, none of my books are late.
Yeah.
Well,
That's very true.
That's great to hear. Well, I'm a clock watcher. At my drawing board, I have a clock in front of me. I have a clock on my Sirius XM and my wristwatch. And I ran a restaurant for 4 years. I had to open and close. You got to be on time.
Yeah.
You got to be on time for your classes in college. I ran the comic book shop for almost 9 years. I had to be on time to open and close and all that sort of thing. I don't like lateness. If I tell you I'm going to be there at 7:00, I don't mean 7:05, and
right.
And that was one of the reasons I got along with Julie Shorts. He was the same way.
Yeah.
Julie, was a stickler. I'll tell you a quick, funny Julie story. He said, what are you doing for dinner? It's in San Diego. And I said, didn't have any plans to beat the Marriott 7:00. So I got there, and Julie's standing out there in front waiting for me. And he looks at his watch and he says, you're almost late. It was 6.
You're almost late.
It's 6:58. I said, yeah, but I am on time. So he escorts me in. He said, well, I invited a few friends. The few friends was Russ Heath, Joe Kubert, Robert Niven, Gil Kane, Greg Theakston, and someone else I can't remember. Yes, I said Gil Kane, right?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at them. I didn't know, and I think Ray Bradbury was there. Anyway, I looked at him, and Julie elbows me in the side and says, I know all the stars.
I bet
Robert
he did,
Silverberg,
too.
Not Ray Bradbury. It was Robert Silverberg.
Okay.
I knew I was trying to remember who the other one was. Because I didn't say, believe it or not, I didn't say very much because I wanted to hear what they had to say because I knew I'd never have this chance again.
Yeah.
You know? That was Julie. He's always on time, but I'm just that way. I hated the idea of being late, so I worked through food poisoning.
Yeah.
When I played, I was playing semi-pro ball when I was working for you.
Yeah, no, I remember that. That's how I know that. Because you and I used to talk about it some.
Right. And Julie gave me a hard time. Was trying to get me to quit playing ball. What if you break your hand? You're gonna make your editor late for the book. That's how Julie, being an editor, looked at that.
Yeah.
And I said, Julie, I got to play while I'm still good. And I was a good ball player. I wasn't good enough to be, major leaguer or AAA player or anything like that. But I was good for whatever leagues I was in. I was always one of the better players. Okay, that's about all I can really say for me. but and he kept trying to talk me out of it. And one time, somebody threw a fastball and just barely missed the top of my hand when I swung, and I cracked my thumb. I didn't tell Julie, but I had to tape it up, and then I had to, do it so I could hold the quill or the brush while I was inking until the thumb had healed. That was kind of hard to do.
I'll bet, yeah.
But I didn't miss a deadline, and I had to work just a little slower, but so I could keep my lines clean. Because, I wanted to be like Joe Sinnott in the sense, because, Joe Sinnott's ink lines were so clean you could eat off them,
Yeah.
And I wanted to be that, Terry Austin too, who was an influence on my inking. It was great. Malilbu was just great. I mean, when you work with people who trust you, and you never had to call me to say where's the artwork. You never had to do that because you knew I would have it in on time.
Yeah, and I think you won't find any arguments from this crew here when you say Malilbu was great.
I thought so.
So I don't know. Tom's like, it could have been better.
Yeah, whatever.
Well, everything I suppose
we could have hired fewer Rolands.
It's like one less Roland. That's all we needed.
Yeah.
Actually, we're gonna probably use 2 Rolands.
So let's see here. Just full of great stories. Sierra Pro Brawl. Wow, that was impressive. So before we run out of time, and time is flying as it always does on Sunday nights here. So what are some of the work that you're involved with today? What do you do today? What kind of motivates you? Because you do more than just ink comics today.
Well, yeah, I was never just an inker. I would say at least 95% of, I've done at least 15,000 pages, maybe more. I don't know, maybe more.
Tommy's just a tracer, but that's a.
But I would say 90 to 90% of every page I ever did, I was a finisher.
Yeah.
Because as much as I like Dave Roberts, I was a finisher over Dave, and that was what was nice. You liked what I did. Dave liked what I did.
Yep.
I enjoyed what I did.
There you go.
If Malilbu was still in business, I'd still be working for you. But now I'm just doing the classic Archie style.
Yeah.
Because some of the horror books and things they do, the artists are inking themselves. Unfortunately, I don't get to do those, but I would if they needed me. I did a couple pages fill in last minute on one issue.
Now, when you say you do the classic Archie style, do you do all the artwork now, or are you inking?
No,
now?
I still when I do it, I do finishes.
Okay, yeah.
But they're all, but they don't do the classic style in the 32 pages because frankly, that style in the 32 page books quit selling, unfortunately.
Yeah.
People don't really want humor, which is a shame.
Yeah.
When you look back at the comics before the early 70s, there was such a great diversity. There was war, Western, romance, lots of humor comics. Obviously, any genre you cared to name, science fiction, superheroes, and now you just don't have that. People just don't seem to want humor comics that much, and that's a real shame. I don't understand that. I also didn't understand in a Reader's Digest when they did a poll, what your favorite things, what finished last was the cartoons. I just couldn't understand that. But because you think people, especially these days, need a laugh. These are been tough times going through COVID and everything else.
I think there's still enough people who view it as, cartoons are for kids. They're not, that's not for adults. Adults read the words. Kids look at the pictures.
Yeah, I'm
not saying that's me. I'm saying I think there's still enough people that think that.
I think you're right. I hate that is so.
So what do you do as a comics historian? Tell us about that.
Well, I've been associate editor for Alter Ego magazine since 2001, and
you're talking 24 years there.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it. I hadn't even given a thought that Roy has been very easy to work. It's his magazine. He owns it,
right?
And obviously he's the editor. Never once treated me in a subordinate position. He treats me like I'm an equal to him.
Yeah.
And he's always respected my judgment when he's asked for my opinions. He told me that I gave him the cleanest copy that anyone's ever given him, and I'm really proud of that.
Yeah.
And the only reason I stopped being the main interviewer and the main writer was my choice. I was too busy with Archie. I was doing 100 pages a month, and I was taking care of a sick family member at the same time, and doing that, it just got to be too much. And also, there was some people in the business that plagiarized my work, and that just demoralized me. I never understood why people who love comics, which are all about good and evil and all these morals and ethics, and don't practice it in their own life. And I never needed anything bad enough to steal it.
Yeah.
And just to take my work and pass off as their own just demoralized me.
Yeah.
And there's never been much money in Alter Ego. I never did it for the money. I did it because somebody had to talk to these people before they passed away. Roy only doesn't make a hell of a lot of money from it, but he does it because he loves it.
Right.
And he sees the importance of it, of recording comics history. And I love history. I was a history minor in college, by the way.
Well, that's some of the discussions that you and I used to have all the time.
Yes, that's right. I still read history books all the time.
And if you recall, there were many times I said, Jim, I want to talk about this, but I got to go. I got work.
I know. I also remember a few times Gerald called me because you didn't have the time to talk to me at all. He says, Roland says, I can't afford to spend a half an hour with Jim on the phone.
I can't talk to Jim today, Gerald. You got to take it. It's true.
Oh yeah, I knew, but I knew it was all in a good way. I didn't.
Well,
take
yeah,
it
of course. Yeah.
I know I talk a lot, but I am a good listener. And that was one of the keys to me doing the interviews. I listened to them, and I got some really marvelous stories. I was able to save a lot of comics history, and maybe that's the most important thing I did. I don't know. I'd leave that for others to judge, but it was important to me to do it.
Yeah.
But I'm still involved with Alter Ego, even if I'm not doing any writing for them. And again, my association with Roy is, always been excellent. And I started running out of people to talk to because I was talking to all the older people from the 70s, 80s, 90s that I could. In fact, I was interviewing one person when I became aware that they had Alzheimer's.
Oh yeah.
And that became a difficult interview, but I call, and when they were on a good day, I was able to get the information I needed and get the interview. That took patience, but I'm a patient person.
Yeah.
But I felt like somebody had to make a contribution to this. The same thing with comic books. I feel like I'm not a big name, but at least I can make a contribution in somewhere. Yeah. Sometimes throughout the 30-some years I worked, there's some kid who my work has made them feel the way that I felt when I was their age. And if I can do that, that is worth staying up all night, bent over a drawing board and doing your work if you're making someone else happy. And that was as important to me, if not more important to me, than the fun I had doing it or the money that I made.
Yeah, fun was always a key word, certainly when I was at Malibu, and it's a key word now. Woody, you are way too kind. Thank you very much. He says, Roland, you are a great host. You are very kind, Woody. Thank you very much for that.
He doesn't know you very well.
We'll have to record Roland when no one's looking.
He only sees the best of Roland for 90 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah. It'd be like America's funniest videos, right? Yeah. Whatever. Okay. So where are you on social media? Where if folks are like, hey man, this Jim guy was really interesting. I want to know more. I want to follow this guy. Where do you hang out on social media?
Just Facebook.
Just Facebook.
Yeah.
So you don't do the Twit, the Blue Sky.
No, I don't do any of that. There's, I tell you, one thing.
The old tickety talk.
What was that?
The old tickety talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have the time, and in all honesty, considering all the hate that's out there, political hate and all that's out there, I don't want to be a part of any of that.
Yeah.
My
probably a smart decision.
You know what I do on my page? I post a joke every day, and usually a bad one, because the worse they are, the more, and everybody tries to be worse than the other one. And sometimes I can get anywhere from 20 to 60 comments a day, and some of them are so bad they're hilarious, and some of them are so funny you're just dying laughing. And I do it because I'm mostly a private person. What you've heard from me about myself here is a lot for me to talk about me, my private life. I'm just not used to doing much of it. I tend to be a private person. I don't have much to say about myself. I don't really think I do anything very interesting anyway. I'm talking about as far as my personal life's concerned.
Right.
And, so
I don't think there's that many people play Semi-Pro ball.
Yeah.
That's
well,
pretty interesting.
I could tell you a lot of funny stories too about that, because there are always funny stories on anything you do for any length of time. But I post a joke every day because it makes people happy. It gives them a place where you don't talk politics, you don't talk religion, no division, no bad language, no sexual connotations.
Right.
It's like G-rated humor, where people can get away from all the angst that goes on in social media, which is what I avoid. But at least you can come to my Facebook page and avoid all that.
Right.
And when COVID was going on and people were at home, I would post like a humor video every day, like some old comedian, like Red Skelton or Don Rickles or somebody, whoever I could find, something short, and I'd post an old Archie comic or something like that, something that had humor that would make you feel better, because during that COVID lockdown was bad, and I just wanted to do my part to help make people get through it and feel a little bit better about things. And I figured if I could do that, I'd make a contribution to someone's happiness. That doesn't get much better than that, and that's something I like to do. So, and that way I don't get to talk about it myself, but I just don't have that much to say.
Yeah.
When
I talked to you at HeroesCon, it's like it's perfect because that's the whole. And I know I didn't tell you much about Silverline, but that's kind of our whole thing is that we don't come on here. We for the most part we avoid negatives, because we like comic books. We're here because we like comic books. We like to make comic books. We want to talk about the things that we like, the things
it's our love language.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
The time I was 9 years old, I was reading college level, and I always felt that comic books had something to do with that, because I loved reading comics. I remember the first time I read X-Men. I didn't know what a mutant was, but I knew how to go to a dictionary and look it up.
Yeah.
I really feel strongly that comics really expanded my ability to read when I was 5, 6, 7 years old.
Yeah,
100%.
And I think it's a shame that we've lost the kid audience. But we lost that kid audience. We started losing them back in the 70s.
Yeah. I think Marvel and DC abandoned them.
They did.
And so we don't build new readers anymore.
The kid audience went elsewhere. They think they're still reading comics, so they're just not reading Marvel and DC comics.
Right.
Yeah. When I ran the comic shop, I found that out. I had an audience that read, fan of graphics like Love and Rockets.
Right.
Anything that Robert Crumb did. American Splendor. And I sold this. In fact, when Mouse came out, the first in the first paperback, it came out the same time that Will Eisner reissued Contract with God in paperback.
Right.
And I took a chance. So I ordered a case of each one. I ordered 100 copies of each one, which is a lot of money back in '86. And I put a sign up at the cash register, and I said, I believe that these are the two best comics available today. Buy one, and if you don't like it, return it. I'll give you your money back. And no one ever returned a copy.
Yeah.
And I sold out within 2 weeks. I couldn't believe it myself, because comics were, I think, $1.25 at the time, and they were in color.
Yeah.
But I had faith in them. I also had faith that a lot of my customers were ready for something that was different, a little more, intellectual.
Yeah.
They just needed access to it.
I also think that that's important for comics, is that store owners, managers, clerks, workers have their own opinions and recommend books to their customer base. Because I remember when I was in college, I worked at a record shop, and back when we had, well, I guess they have record shops again now, don't they? But
Not like they used to.
No, not like they used to. But what I recognized probably about after, I don't know, several months, is that there were people that would come in and come directly to me and ask me, hey, what's new that I would like? Because I had recommended something to them that they liked.
Right.
And so they're like, okay, this guy and I share taste, right? So I want to know what the new thing is, because he's going to know.
Right.
And then I could recommend, I could recommend things, and they would buy it without, hey, what's new here? And they would just buy it, right? I think comic shops need that. Comic shops need those people, and they don't need to push Batman, right? People know who Batman is. They need to find those books like Mouse, like Dinosaurs for Hire, like Man in the Mask. They need to find those books like that people don't know about, and say, hey, look, this is worth reading. If you like this, you're gonna like this book.
Yeah, I agree, and that's what I did. In fact, when Dragon Lady Press published Alex Toth, who I was close friends with for many years, Bravo for Adventure, black and white magazine, right?
Yeah.
I ordered 75 copies, which was a lot at that time period. I think that was in end of 85, early in 86. And I did the same thing with that I did with Mouse and Contract with that. And I sold them out. And Alex said, and then I got a reorder of 50. And Alex said, hell, you sold half the print run. He was kidding, but he couldn't believe I sold that many. But it was the same thing. I wanted to introduce people to Alex, because Alex never had a defining superhero that character that he could mention, and he was one of the greatest of all of them. Certainly, I think one of the greatest craftsmen. But one day the owner of the shop was in there, and he never worked. The only time he ever worked in there was one time he came in to get his comic books, because he was a comic book fan.
Yeah.
I said, I got to run to the bathroom. We just watch plays. He says, don't take long. So that was for about 20 seconds as long. Anyway, he was sitting there to get his books, and this guy walks in, I would say mid-30s, and he says, I used to read comics when I was a kid.
Right.
And I'm getting interested in this because of the Batman movie. And so I said, well, I'll give you any help that I can. And then he holds up a G.I. Joe. And, by this time I'd talked with him a little bit. So I started to get a gauge of him as a person, so I could gauge what he might like. And that was the way I used psychology. And he picks up a G.I. Joe and said, well, I like this. And I said, no. Because I asked him, what did you used to read?
Right.
Okay, and when he told me what he used to read, I said, "What do you read non-comics?" And then he told me. So I picked out 5 or 6 for him that I thought he might like, and he bought them. He became a regular customer. But when he left, the owner got mad at me. You cost me a sale on that G.I. Joe, and I said, "No, I gained you a customer, because if I told him that was a good comic, he'd have read it and known it wasn't very good. He'd have never trusted me.
Right.
He'd never believed me again."
Exactly.
He didn't, the owner didn't understand, customer relations. And I did, because I ran a restaurant for 4 years. I was 19 when I was manager of a restaurant.
Yeah.
So I was lucky, and I like people. I get along with most people. And,
Yep.
You're
not shy.
No, I'm not shy. Actually, I am, but not quite in the ways you might suspect. But I wanted to be helpful. You only have one life. If you can't be friendly and helpful to the others, it's not much of a life.
Right.
I come from a big family. I lived in a college dorm for 4 years. And I just like people. That's why that was the fun thing about comic books. You're making some people happy.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
And the comics history that I did, it makes people happy, because there's an educational factor that's so important and very vital, that it brings them the happiness of the knowledge.
Yes.
And that's important. That's all important.
Well,
so that's sort of.
And also, there's a lot of things in that comics history that we are never going to be able to experience things that happened in the 1940s, but I can read about it. You know,
Right.
And if there's someone who can tell me about it from the people who were there, that's even better.
Right. Nearly everybody I interviewed is dead now, and I've thought about that sometimes. And by the way, I would say at least I interviewed about 300 people, and I would say about 8 out of 10 of them I stayed friends with until they passed. So every time they passed, it was really sad days for me. One year about 15 of them died, and it was a tough year. Especially when Stan Goldberg died, who I admired and loved dearly. We were very close friends. And that was one of the hard things about what I did was you make the friends and you lose them because they're so much older than you.
Yeah.
But I got to tell their stories, and that was what I cared about. And
Right.
and then I would ask them about other people they knew who died were never interviewed, and at least that way I could save some history and make some people come alive for other people. Say you recognize their work. Since they're important. I think the people who only focus on the big stars are missing out by forgetting that the average people, the people who aren't big names, are important too, because it's people like me who are not a big star who help build the comic book business and give you a history that you're lucky to have because there were people willing to do the work, and this is true in any genre.
Well, it's funny because I teach a very small segment of comics history in my class. My class is not about comics, but it's not about comics history. And one of the things that when you do the research is that when we were young, right, when we started buying comics, we just do Golden Age, Silver Age, right? That was it, because that was what was in the price guide, right? You had the Golden Age books and you had the Silver Age books, and there weren't really any books pre-Golden Age that people really talked about. Well, now, and part of the reason was nobody cared, and it wasn't until Mouse and the Pulitzer Prize and all that kind of people started to say, hey, what happened before the Golden Age? Where were comics? And so now people are studying that period of time, and we're learning more and more about it. Which there's not a title fund. You got guys. Our clock has zoomed by us. Do y'all have a question before I get us out of here? Do y'all have a question for Jim? I've occupied all the questions. I apologize.
He's been great. It's been great listening to him.
Yeah, no.
Thank you.
It's like been sitting around the campfire.
So all of you out there, be sure to look up Jim on Facebook. That is the only place that he has social media. I know that there's one or two of our listeners are like they don't have Facebook, but you can still go here even without Facebook. You can still go there and look at Jim's post. Certainly all of them that are public.
And if you're a pipe smoker, you can go to pipe, you can go to pipe forums and look for Jim Inks. That's the name I use on the pipe forums. I post my smokes. I give advice, because like I said, I've smoked over 3,300 different blends, and by far I've got more reviews than anybody else. But it's fun. It's fun being out there with others. That's why I like baseball. Baseball is a team sport.
Yep.
I prefer a team sport to a solo act.
Yep.
And it's the same with comics.
It is. It's a collaborative effort.
Yeah.
Well, Jim, as we wrap up here, hang once we go off line, if you've got a minute to hang out with us. Yeah. All right. So last minute here, Stargazer, Ultraverse. I don't know what YouTube gods brought me here, but I love it. Well, Stargazer, we are glad that you joined us right as we're about to say goodbye. But please, Stargazer, don't forget to tune in next week again at 8 o'clock. And we'll probably talk about some Ultraverse stuff then. But we certainly have a lot of stuff. Look us up, Stargazer, on YouTube at Silverline Comics, and you'll find all kinds of Ultra stuff there that we've talked about. Guys, don't forget that we've got a crowdfunder running. Cape Town #2. Look for www.silverlinecomicscrowdfunder.com. On Tuesday, how weird is too weird? Is there such a thing as too weird of a comic, or can you never be weird enough? Comic creators share some of their weirdest comic ideas and some of their favorite wacky comics. That is on a Silverline show on Tuesday. On Wednesday, the Wednesday Whammers Color Me Bad, a look at the color of villains throughout the years. So that is for the Wednesday Whammers. And this one, I know this one's, Tom is especially going to like this one. Next Sunday, we're going to talk about, what do superheroes call their costumes? Are they costumes? Are they uniforms? Are they super suits? Are they spandex? What do they call the clothing they're
Where's
wearing?
my super suit?
What do superheroes call the clothing they wear into action? And we will discuss this at length, and that is next Sunday. Until then, anybody else got anything before we call it a night?
Thanks for hanging out with us. It's been great.
Yeah, thank you, Jim,
thank you
so much.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. It was a blast, like I knew it would be. I got new buttons to push over here, so let me see this, see if this works. Until next time, remember to make mine Silverline. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Hi, I'm Dave Dorman. Make mine Silverline.